Hello, this is Yayoi Komiyama from Brain to Belly, and welcome to the Spanglish World Networks on Zingo TV, channel 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on your respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. And while you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. So, hello everyone and Happy New Year. It is January already of 2025. Oh my gosh, how the year went by. And
Yes.
today I have a special guest. Her name is Angelica Ponder. She is a consultant and coach. And my connection with her is through the John Maxwell group. She and I are both John Maxwell coaches. And that is how I met her. And she's a relatively new friend, but we found out that we have so much in common and that we were probably going around in the same circles, not knowing each other until
Mhm.
today, actually. So,
Yes, we probably passed each other in the street.
oh, definitely. Because I used to live, everyone knows I'm in New York, and I used to live on the Upper East Side of New York for 20 something years. And I just found out that Angelica was in the same area, just a block or two away from me, or a couple blocks away from me. So we would have probably hung out in the same areas. And we were both working in the similar industry for a while as well. So,
Yes.
yes, it's the world is well, coincidences, I don't believe in them. I think everything shows up for a reason. And
Yeah,
I think this was a connection that was meant to be.
I do too. Exactly.
So, Angelica, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and what your passion is. And yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm Angelica or Angelica, if you want to say it in Spanish, born and raised in Bogota, Colombia. So I moved to the US when I was in high school. A big learning curve, learning English and
Yes.
leaving my family. But now I have my family here. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been living here now for 12 years. No, I lied. That's 12 years in one house, 16 years here. 11 years in one house. Yeah. So
Wow.
a while, actually, quite a
Yeah.
while. In the place that I've stayed the most after college. And really, my career is, and to make it short, is I spent a lot of time in hospitality, was what
Yeah.
I went to school for. So I
Yes.
worked at different hotel brands in luxury hospitality, and little by little went from operations to quality to learning. And I realized that I love learning and development. So that's where I spent quite a bit of time the last 15 years, is
Wow.
helping individuals realize their potential. That's really my
Yes.
exciting part and what drives me. And that's really what I do now with my consulting firm. It's only a couple of years old, but what I do is I really help companies and especially groups
Mm-hmm.
uncover some of their hidden strengths. So I really like to focus on strength based as well as leadership development, really based on personality insights as well as emotional intelligence. That's where I've done a lot of study the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
So I that involves speaking engagements. I do quite a
Yes.
few of those, and I also do a number of workshops. So that's where I spend a lot of my time.
Wow, wow. So you got your start in hospitality. And I know another
Yes.
coincidence we just found out was you were in school, you went to school in Michigan, and our
Yes.
producer also went to school in Michigan. So, you
I
know,
know, I'm telling you.
this is like everything's kind of like the puzzle pieces fitting together. And so it's quite interesting how that happens.
Yes, and you and I come from two different cultures. I know we have
Yes.
probably many beliefs that have evolved over the years as we have changed who we are and merged two cultures into one.
Yeah. And I think that's actually quite interesting that you mentioned that because, it's it, it I had the whole identity issue, like what is my identity for a long time, and merging those two, and then being okay with being who I am, of the combination of the two cultures, and being okay with it took a long time for me to accept that. and to say it's okay that I just be who I am, regardless of which culture I'm in. So I'm sure you can relate to that. And
100%, 100%. I'll tell you a quick story, but for a long time, just like you, when I moved to the US, I felt like for a while, for a number of years, I didn't fit in here, right? I didn't feel bad. I had a great
right,
time. People were really kind. I was always the new girl at school because my parents moved a lot. So I didn't feel any discrimination or any of that. Thank goodness. But I did feel internally like I didn't really belong.
right.
But then after I got more and more years here, I would go back to Colombia every time, well, at least once a year to see my dad and my grandparents. And I also started to notice that I didn't really belong there anymore because I didn't understand all the jokes, like the
Yes,
slang had changed. I would start getting frustrated about certain things, that certain norms and rules that I had in the
right.
US, or the comforts of the US that
Hmm.
I no longer had there. But I still loved it. I still felt at home there, the music, the food, the family. And then I would come back here and I'd say, oh, I miss things from there. But I don't really. So over the years, and this is a very real example,
Hmm.
for many years, I didn't want to become a US citizen because I
Oh,
always thought that if I did it, I would lose a part of. So it's a very self-limiting belief, right?
yes.
I told myself the story, and I believed it, that if I became a US citizen, I was leaving that part of Colombia behind. And so I said to myself, okay, let me explore this. I'm marrying an American and I'm going to stay here. Why am I so afraid? And then I realized I could have dual citizenship.
Oh, lucky you.
So yeah, so I was like, no, I'm gonna do it. But I decided, yeah, I decided as a strong woman to say, I am not gonna get my citizenship just when I get married. That's too easy. I'm gonna do it on my own terms before I get, which again is just a
Oh,
very,
wow.
it's just a very funny way because there's
Yeah.
hundreds of people that would die for the citizenship, right?
Yes. Yes.
And here I am, not trying to be selfish, but just trying to really look at it and say, am I going to lose or give up part of myself
Yeah.
by giving up? Right. And so it was so interesting to now look back and realize that the biggest lesson is I can be myself in all of it. I don't need to be one thing. I don't need
Yes.
to belong to one box.
Yes.
I can be a little bit of different things, and that's what makes me unique. I think that's our superpower.
I agree. I agree. That's beautiful how you say that. Yeah. Because, you know, we do have all these limiting beliefs because society kind of boxes us in and they say, well, of course, it's easier for governments to have people in different boxes and different columns and things like that. And it's easier to think, you don't have to think actually if you're in a certain box or you're put into this label or whatever. You don't have to think about anything. You just go with everything, don't question anything. And it's easy that way. But once you start asking yourself all these questions and then you start thinking, wait a minute, I don't have to be in this box. When you realize that you can go out of the box or you can go and explore different things, then this whole world opens up. And then, like you said, you're part of everything. You are a combination of all the little parts of you that are you, right? That become you. So I love that how you say that, and I'm sure with your work, in consulting and coaching and leading people and training, you see a lot of work with that, and a lot of people struggling with this identity piece because we all feel like we have to be a certain thing or we have to be a
Yes,
certain image, right? Yeah.
absolutely. And then sometimes we can find to beliefs that were passed down to,
Yes.
and we adopted them, and we
Yes.
never looked in the mirror and said, we never paused and looked and said, is this limiting belief mine or is it somebody else's, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then we don't necessarily go, is that limiting belief? First, is it a limiting belief? And
Right.
second, does it serve me now? Or is that an old one that I could get rid of? Because, right? Like we don't do
Yes.
that often. I think society in general, my belief is that we move so fast
Yes.
that many times we neglect And I think it's also because we don't want to do the hard work, which is
Yeah,
look internally. It's easier, like you said, to get busy and get caught up in things and not pause and think, do that self exploration or self
yeah,
assessment.
yeah. And I think sometimes, the universe or situations put you in, well, you're put into a situation where you have to think because, certain things happen, like even like COVID. Remember when we were all
Yes.
in lockdown? It was kind
Oh
of
my,
like we were forced to, look internally for many of us. And I think that was kind of like almost like the universe saying, "Hey, I'm going to put you guys on pause and do what and then I think do what you do." And I think a lot of people's true essence came out in that
uh-huh.
instance. Yeah.
You're right, because we had to, and not all of us showed up as our best selves during that time, and
Yes.
we had to give ourselves some grace because we were all, like you said, locked in.
Yeah.
And so just like animals, we nobody wants to be locked in. Everybody wants to come out and do things and see people. Regardless if you have more introvert tendencies or extrovert, you still want to see people and
Right.
connect. Just a basic human need.
Yes.
So I think most of us, I remember doing homeschooling with my daughter and my husband working in one room,
Oh,
I'm
wow.
working in another, she's working in another, and we're all like, stressed out. And we saw the big difference in my daughter. We saw
Oh,
her being a lot more cranky, and like she really
yeah.
missed her friends. So yes, it sometimes situations put us in places where we have to analyze those beliefs, but while we're in it, sometimes we don't question it because we're
Right.
in it, we're in the
Yeah.
madness. So
Right.
until we get out of it, we go, oh, look, we were kind of cranky during that time.
Yeah, and it's good that, we can go back and look at it in retrospect, because everything, I don't know, I'm even in John Maxwell, I'm in also in Tony Robbins, I'm in also Neuroencoding, I'm in all these different
You're in
places.
all the That's fantastic.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Well,
That's nuts.
but
But I mean, like we said earlier, it helps you because you can connect dots from different places.
yeah, and I think the main thing is, we all say in whatever modality we teach in or we've learned, everything is, you have to measure where you are and figure out. It's like a map, right? You have to figure out where you are and where you want to go.
Yes.
So it's almost like and you have to analyze a little bit to figure out where you want to go, or else you're kind of like lost in that map, just drifting and drifting. Whereas, everything you have to kind of like find out where you are and decide where you want to go. And it's that self-analyzation part. And also just realizing, what do you want? That main question that all of us, kind of we skirt around it a little bit. Sometimes we're like, no, I know what I don't want, but then you're like, well, what do you want? You found
Yes.
out all the don't wants, but what is it that you really want? And I think those are like main questions that I think like during the pandemic that we kind of like were forced to think about, because we're like,
Yes.
we don't want to be locked down. We don't want to be in this situation. So what do we want? And I think a lot of us, like you said, realized that we wanted that connection, the community part of life that we had before pandemic,
Yes, but we
pre-pandemic.
probably took it for granted because it was
Yeah.
always there,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Definitely. Definitely. And I think it's become, in a lot of ways, I feel anyway, that it's become a kinder society in some ways because we've realized the value of the connections that we used to have. I think
Yes.
a lot of people, like you said, took it for granted and we were like, oh my God, that was such a basic human need that was taken away from us.
Yes. And I don't honestly, I remember exactly where I was when I got the news. I was at work. We were in a conference meeting. And I remember HR came in and told us, like, hey, starting in a couple of days, you're going to be working from home. And it still seemed very unreal that the
Yes.
entire world will sort of have a pause, right?
Yes.
It seemed very unreal. I'm like, really? This can't be. I'm sure there is some solution.
I know it was, I still remember it too. I remember, I think I think it was like towards the end of the week or something. And
Yes, I think
I think
so.
it was like a Thursday or Wednesday or somewhere around there. And I said to my boss, I was like, oh, since, I'm not, it's towards the end of the week. I think I'll just work from home. Is that okay? And she's like, sure. And then it just ended up being I'm working
Being
from
that
home.
you had to
Yeah,
be at home anyway.
unfortunately. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it worked out anyway. And then I remember during the pandemic or towards the end of it, I went into the office just to pick up a few things, right? And then I remember I passed by the pantry area and there was a newspaper from that day that we were
Oh,
like, yeah, everyone. And I felt like I was in a time capsule.
yes. Wow. Did
Yeah.
you get it? Did you save it or anything?
You know what? I should have
You
saved it.
probably didn't because you
Didn't think it.
you couldn't predict what was going to happen. So you probably thought that's just the newspaper.
Yeah, but it was kind of eerie because it was already probably 2021 at that point, right?
Oh my
And yeah, it was
goodness.
like probably towards, I don't know, the beginning or end of it or something like that. And then I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of creepy looking. And then I just said that and that was it, right?
Wow.
And I just grabbed my things and got out because it was kind of creepy being in the office without
Yeah, when
anyone
no one
there.
else was there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I know. I always, even when I was in the office and I was working late, I always felt it was kind of creepy because you're like one of the very few people in the office. So you kind of
Yeah.
like check out to see who else is on your floor so that you're kind of feeling a little better.
Yes. The only interesting thing about being in New York is as soon as you get to the street, you're like, oh, there's 100 people.
Yeah, I know. You're like relieved.
I remember at one point I had a 5 a.m. shift. It wasn't for too long at one of the hotels.
Oh
I
my
was like
God.
the opening manager in that
Right.
department. And I remember taking the subway at like 3:45 with the
Mm.
homeless.
Oh my God. That was
And
scary. Yeah,
I was like the adventures that you always carry with you throughout life.
that is true. That is true. Oh
Well,
my
I'm so
gosh.
glad we got to connect, and I'm so excited about sharing more about growth mindset
Yes.
because I love that you have all these different certifications. I think that's fascinating because, like I said, you can combine. You
Yes.
don't have to be in one place. You can combine the experiences from all. And for me, when I decided to go on a limb and have my own practice, I have to be honest, I was very scared to open my own business. Not because I thought it was going to fail. I wasn't afraid of failure, but I was concerned of going from honestly two incomes to one.
Yes.
We've always had two incomes, and you start having the car payments and the house and the
Yes.
child and the
Oh yeah.
dog, and you have to save for when you get sick, and you have all these expenses. Your parents might be getting older, and as you know, we're both from different cultures, so you save to go travel back and visit
Yes.
family. So I was more concerned about that, and I was also concerned of I've always worked. I've never not had the money.
Right.
And again, here's another limiting belief. I had to tell myself, why are you so nervous? Why are you so nervous? Because my husband was wonderful. And luckily, he has a very steady job. So he said, if you want to do this, this is a good time to do it.
Right.
Once you are going to get to spend more time at home. That was one of the great benefits of, and I said, I do. We only have one child. And as she's growing, I really want to spend more time with her.
Yeah.
And my prior job, I traveled. So I didn't get to spend, and I enjoyed it. It's not a bad thing. I really
Mhm.
enjoyed the travel, but I didn't get to pick her up every time or take her to school or take her to dance and the older I got, the more I realized that corporate is always going to be there,
Yes.
right? But
Yes.
my child is not. They're going to
No.
grow up
Grow up. Yep.
and they might not want to spend as much time with me. And these are like very, very precious years. So I had to look in the mirror and go, okay, why am I so afraid of that? If my husband is supportive and we've done the math and we can do it, we might have to cut down on some expenses,
Right. Hmm.
but why am I so afraid? And again, I had to dig deep and go, here's another limiting belief.
Well.
When my mom and my dad got divorced when I was 6 years old,
Hmm.
unconsciously, I always told myself, I'm going to have my own money. I'm not going to depend on a guy.
I hear you. I hear
Right?
you.
And then as I explore this, I was like, gosh, why do I have this? Where is it coming from? So I uncovered where it's coming from. And then I had to ask myself, is this really apply? No, this doesn't apply to now. We're in completely different situations. So I had to really get rid of that. And that goes with um, not just starting the company, but figuring out what type of coach or consultant do I want to be.
Yes.
Right. And I
Yes.
had to really explore. And after everything, it came back to mindset, because that's exactly what I've been working on. I just needed the word. And it's like
Yes.
it's been there all along. That's what
Yes.
I've been. And it's about your mindset. Just like you and I have talked the last 20 minutes, it's all about our mindset and those beliefs, and the beliefs we have about others,
Yes.
and the beliefs we have about ourselves. And as you've talked in many of your shows, it starts in the mind, and then it
Yes.
goes to, it translates into the body, and our feelings become our actions,
Yes.
and our
Yes.
actions become our habits, and
Yes.
and
I
that's
know.
the same
Yeah.
thing. So
Yep.
I said, I could be a transformational coach. Absolutely, that's a buzzword.
Mm-hmm.
But transformation is also about your mindset, because it starts up here
Everything.
always.
Everything. Yes.
And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why I chose mindset, because
Wow.
it encompasses so many things. But at the same time, I like to say that I'm also a heart coach,
Yes.
like a heart, because it is the mind, but it's very connected to your heart. And when you
Yes.
look at leadership or growing as an individual or as a team, everything deals with how your emotions. You can't
Yes.
separate your emotions from your brain directly, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
the more that you are in sync with your values,
Yes.
the more that your emotions will be at peace with
Yes.
themselves.
I agree 100%. I mean, like like I always say, and you said it too, it's really how what you think is how you feel, right? And how you feel
Yes.
is what you do, and what you do is what you get. So
Yeah.
it's really that think, feel, do, have. And it's really the connection of brain, heart, belly, or wherever your parts of your
Yes.
body. And it's how we relate to the world and how the world relates to us. And everything starts up here. And
Mm-hmm.
like you were talking about those limiting beliefs, are those beliefs what we really truly believe, or is that something that we were told and we started to believe?
Yeah.
Is that really our belief, or was it something that somebody told us and we never questioned? And
Mm-hmm.
you start to realize, like you were saying, about I want to make my own money, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of women, have the same realization or same thinking, because I think I don't know, when I was growing up, it was like I think it was a while back, but it was like in the
Oh,
set.
you're young.
No, no, no. It was in the 70s. So, and we were like, women and power, and women were starting to climb up the corporate ladder. It was,
Yeah.
glass ceiling and all this and that. And I remember reading a lot about women coming into their power, and, women executives struggling. They had to kind of like dress like men and act like men in order to be accepted in the,
Mm.
male dominated industries. And even until recently, I was in a very male dominated industry, which was, I was in finance.
Ah,
So,
yeah.
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 And so you learn all that, and you're like, so you develop this, I think as a child I developed this thing about, as a woman I want to be a strong woman, and then you kind of like realize, but and then I was growing up in Japan as well, where it's like that whole concept of women and men were,
Yes.
it's more, the women really follow the men, or it's more of a male dominated society more than
Yes.
the US or any Western culture,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of like getting used, coming from there, and then seeing this, being here in the US, where it's more women are strong, women can be strong, you have the
Yes.
possibility to be strong, and then learning that. And then, so I struggled with that identity shift as well. And then that whole, limiting belief. And then you started to think, well, what do I believe? You know, and
Mm-hmm.
and then you start realizing, wait a minute, I can change those beliefs. Like, if you
Yes.
start questioning it, you don't have to believe that. That wasn't a belief that I had. And I, like you, I started thinking, oh, I could mesh all those different things and create what I believe. And then that could be creating an emotion that I feel fulfilled, that I can be a combination of all these different things, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, so, and I believe that, you find that with your clients and with your work, you do something similar for your clients. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think honestly, as the more that I worked in hospitality, because I still love the industry, I'm just not in it the way
Hmm.
I used to.
Right.
But I think I really believe that it all led me, all the different experiences led me to people
Yes.
and team. I'm passionate about the customer, but I'm always more passionate about the team member, the
Yes.
employee,
Hmm.
because I strongly believe that it all starts with there, right?
Yes.
And the more that I worked with team members, or I was leading teams or managing teams or helping teams, I always notice it's about learning about the humans.
Yes.
It all comes down in any industry. It all comes down to human behavior,
Yes.
right? So
Agreed.
the more that we learn about ourselves and others, the more that we will be more curious and less judgmental, hopefully more accepting, hopefully
Yes.
more empathetic.
Yes.
And I think I was just reading an article this morning how all these things are shifting in the hospitality industry and there's more technology. And I agree, technology will help in some areas to make processes better.
Yes.
But I strongly believe people will always pay more,
Yeah. Hmm.
especially in luxury,
Yes.
any luxury, not just hospitality, but luxury goods, any luxury service. People will always pay more for the human interaction because the human interaction will always give you that problem resolution, that empathy, that
Yes.
recognition, that personalization that technology will not always will never be able to equate. They can help us, and I'm all for technology helping us do things better and maybe more efficient,
Yes.
but I'm a strong believer that if we work on the skills that technology will never take away, because we will always be a partner, but we need to still be in the lead.
Yes, I agree. I agree. It's the human element that, I mean, hey, we're on this earth and humans are here, right?
Yeah.
Technology is here too, but there's got, it can't be one or the other. It's got to be a combination of that for us to coexist. And this is going to sound very sci-fi and all this, but I think I think it really needs to coexist, and that human element is what drives our cultures, the world, because without that, and COVID was a great example of that, right? We all
Hmm.
crave that human connection. And we were, we had Zoom, yes, and that was great. And that's become a norm now. But when we still see somebody live in 3D, it's like, wow, this became a reality. And you
Yes.
feel that warmth, like you were saying about hospitality. You feel the warmth of that human connection. So, like you were saying about luxury brands and all this, when you go into a luxury, let's say a store or something, there's always that person who is
Hmm.
like the concierge, who is
Yes.
like, and they connect with the customer. And there's always that one-to-one connection, which is that human element that I think as humans, we crave that
Yeah.
connection, that human connection. And
Yeah.
no matter how technology advances, that's not going to be replicated. I don't know, I hope not anyway.
Yeah, because they won't be as authentic, right?
No,
With
it won't be
technology.
definitely
Yeah,
authentic. And
it won't be as authentic. Yeah.
we as humans know what is authentic and what isn't. When you trust your gut, you know what's authentic and what isn't. So,
Yeah, it's hard to describe it, but you just
yeah,
get the feeling, right?
yeah, exactly. And then to your
Yeah.
point about teams, um, the teams that are the strongest in any industry are the
Mhm.
teams that the individuals know each other, that connect with
Mhm.
each other. Those are the strongest teams that work the best. Because when
Yeah.
there's only just one leader that's like leading without people following, or that's not really leading, but they
Yes.
think it's leading, right? I'm going to be
Yes.
blunt about it, but you know that doesn't work. It's not a team. And teamwork is human nature, I think, because
Yes.
we are all about community. Humans are about community. Even in prehistoric times, nobody lived alone because you can't live
Yes.
alone. You needed to work
Yes.
together to
To
survive.
survive. Yes. You're right. We are I love teams because I know there will be people on the team that cover my blind spots, the
Yeah.
areas I'm not good at, right?
Yep.
And nobody can survive alone.
Yeah.
Nobody can be successful alone. There's always people that have paved the way that we either know them or we don't. But I'm a huge believer in mentorship and having
Yes.
great individuals, whether in the business or outside,
Yes.
that just help you, challenge you to see things differently. Like the best or the most successful high performing teams that I've seen, I've been part of, or have witnessed from other companies are the ones that know each other really well, as you said, but also are at the next level where they
Yes.
challenge each other
Yes.
and they're not afraid to have conflict because they
Yes.
realize that conflict is part of building trust. It's a stepping stone,
Yes,
as
definitely.
opposed to teams. I've come across teams that really like each other, but they're at the stage where they are afraid to have conflict or voice. I don't really like that. I don't really like that suggestion that much because they don't want to ruffle feathers and I don't want this person to not like me.
Yeah. And that's
Or, and that really stifles the growth of the team because,
yes.
like anything in life, if we look at any relationships we have, either romantic or friendships, any relationships that are worth anything in our life have taken first time to be built. It
Yes.
doesn't happen overnight. And second, we've probably had some conflict. And people tend to think conflict is like this, but it's not. It's more like it might be like this, as opposed,
Right.
like, it doesn't have to be an argument. It
No.
depends how you were raised and what you were taught
Right.
about conflict. But conflict is healthy and it's good for you. And if you're able to have those conflicts, it just reassures the other person that you cared enough to say something. And if you're able to resolve it and move on, it just builds a stronger
Stronger
relationship,
connection. Yeah.
right?
And it does. And I don't know, when you were speaking that, I just had this image in my head of like when you're strengthening iron or
Yes.
steel, right?
Yeah.
You pound on it and you pound on it. And
Oh,
that's like,
good. Good analogy.
yeah, I don't know why. I just had that image in my head of somebody, a sword maker, pounding on that blade to make it stronger and stronger.
Yes, it
And
almost needs to suffer a little bit, right?
yeah,
Like
a little bit.
it
Yeah,
needs to be molded differently. Yeah.
exactly. And it's that stimulus, right? You need to be
Yes.
stimulated in some way or another because if there is no conflict, it's just stagnant
Exactly.
and you don't move at all. And, humans, we need growth. We need to be constantly moving and challenged because, when, like, even in relationships, in marriages, or just any relationship, really, even boss, subordinate relationships, friendships, if something isn't challenged, you're like complacent and you don't find it stimulating anymore. And then you move on to a different relationship, right? So it doesn't
Yes.
grow. And the relationships that grow, that have stayed with you, are the ones that where there were some challenges, you overcame those challenges together
Mm-hmm.
and you worked together and you found that, you care more about that person or those people. And,
Yeah.
families are a great example of that.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
hey,
That's
you
where
don't
we have
want,
to do the hardest work sometimes,
oh,
right?
yeah. Yep. Yep. And I'm sure, we all realize that this past holiday season, right? Because, starting with Thanksgiving here in the US, it's Thanksgiving, and then the holidays, Christmas or Hanukkah, and then it's family time,
Yeah.
really.
Yes.
And I think, a lot of people went through the hardships or the joys of family, right? Because
Yes.
I know that with my family, I mean, I had the privilege of spending, I think, about 15 days just with my younger sister when we
Wow.
were in Tokyo this past summer. And old dynamics, come to play, right? And it was funny, old habits that I was like, oh, wait, this is an old habit. And you started realizing, and you're like, oh. and then my MO was, I used to, whenever I got emotional or I got challenged about something, I would eat, and that's why brain to belly, but I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
eat, and I would eat my emotions to try to stuff them down or whatever. And I remember there was something that happened, and I was like, crap, I'm going to go to the convenience store and go buy this and this and this and eat. And then I realized, wait a minute, what is triggering it? And it's like my sis, just the dynamic that we had, the old habits that we had. And
That's
I
what
was,
brought your mind back there.
yeah. And I was like, oh, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, now that I know that, I don't need to go to the convenience store to buy whatever
Yes.
and eat whatever. I'll just eat whatever I want, but not because I want to stuff my feelings, but because I want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it was a great realization. And I think,
Wow.
when you're with family, those old habits come back. And you just have to be a little mindful, like you were saying about the mindset piece. You have
Yes.
to start thinking, wait a minute, is this a habit? Or is this, something that came out of behaviors with family? Or, mom used to do this. That's why I used to do this. But is this, in as grown-ups or at this age, do we both have to do this, right? Is that a dynamic that we
Yes.
have to still engage in?
That's so interesting how just being with your sister trigger that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like it's just being with somebody. I've always thought that I find it fascinating that first, humans, we are full of contradictions. I
Yes.
just find it
Oh, yeah.
fascinating. We say one thing and we do another.
Yep. Yep.
I make a lot of jokes about that in my talks. I think it's so funny. If it happens to somebody else, oh, but if it happens to us, oh, poor me. But the other thing is that we are um such special individuals. We are beautifully made,
Yes.
very complex. And
Yeah.
it's interesting to me also that we tend to think this person should do that, or why are they do when just getting to know ourselves is a full-time,
Oh, God.
in my opinion, a full-time job for the rest of our lives. And somehow we think we know the other person. So I find it funny, and it happens to me all the time. Just because I do this work and I tell people doesn't mean I have it figured out. It's actually the opposite.
Yeah.
Every time I have a talk or something, somehow there's something that happens before the talk that reinforces what I'm going to talk about. And then I end up having very real, recent examples to share. And I'm like, okay, I know you are up there making jokes and trying to trick me. So it's like, if I'm going to talk about something, it's like, okay, I'm going to have to live it. And that's part of being a truthful and a um, caring, I think, consultant or coach, is
But,
that
yep.
you want to be very honest.
Yes.
One thing I want people to always remember is that I want to be me, authentic, genuine, and
Yeah.
I want to share a lot of the things that I have done wrong. I spend a lot of time sharing lessons because it's not about me being, oh, look at all the things I did. That doesn't, in my opinion, that doesn't inspire others. It's sometimes is about sharing the hardships
Oh,
or
yeah.
the things that didn't go well and what I learned from them. It might not be the same for them, but same exact example, but it might trigger something else. Like you just said, the relationships we have from with others, like those we love the most. Again, another big aha is those we love the most are the ones that will give us the most challenge,
They will.
right?
Yeah.
But it,
Definitely.
like you said, the relationship with others, and we also mentioned earlier today, the relationships with ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so huge because I am a huge believer if we have a great relationships with ourselves, we're at peace, we know what
Yes.
triggers us, we have an idea of, and we're always evolving. We can
Mm-hmm.
never have
Oh,
it all
yeah.
figured out, right?
No.
Never. Every time I think I figured something out, something else happens, and I'm like, oh, Angelica, you have so much more to learn, girl.
Always.
So
Yes, I know.
always,
I know what you mean.
right? I'm like, oh, but I love that we can have that growth mindset, meaning that relationship with self where we tell ourselves, you know, my abilities, my strengths, my habits, my intelligence had all be improved over time. It's
Yes.
not stagnant. It's not staying fixed. I all those things can grow as long as, like you said, we are able to have a retrospect in our mind and go, not just think about it, but then act on it. Like you
Yes.
said, oh, this is triggering me to go back to the store.
Hmm.
But should I go back? No. Maybe I do go back, but with a different intention,
Right.
right? And a different goal. And that's why I love talking about growth mindset, because it's our ability to really see beyond and look at failures as opportunities for getting better,
Yes.
and not look at what we have right now as end all be all. But unfortunately, I also think that growth mindset is a buzzword.
Yes.
So I think sometimes it gets used incorrectly, and I am a strong believer that many of us only know a little bit of it. So every time I can, I try to expand it, because it doesn't say like, "Oh, Angelica, you the more that you practice being a gymnast, you will do it." No, like 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 I don't have that ability. I could try the rest of my life to be an amazing gymnast. I'm never going to be Simone Biles, right?
No.
Like that's just not my thing. So I also have to realize where my limits at.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's getting to know yourself, right? And like you were saying, learning from failure. And I have an acronym that I always have that I always say is that failure is first attempt in learning.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah.
I heard it, but it's been years, so
Yes.
that's nice to
Yeah.
hear it again.
Yeah. And I actually have a sticky note on my in front of my wall that says
Wow,
that
I love
because
it. I'm gonna have to shamelessly share it.
yeah, that's okay. And because somebody shared it with me, and I'm like, that's so great because it's not a failure. There is no such thing as failure.
Mhm.
And it's only what you think. Because if you learn from any experience, it's not a failure, it's an experience, and
Mm.
you're learning from it. And I think that growth mindset, to learn is such an important thing for us humans and for us to evolve.
Mhm.
And like, we're energy, and energy is never stagnant. Energy is always moving,
Yes.
and molecules are always moving. We don't see it, but it's always moving around within us and outside of us. So for us to go forward, to be better, to evolve, we have to take some sort of action.
Yes.
Whether and the results don't really matter as long as we're taking that action, because by taking that action, we're growing, we're moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, that is so great. And I just wanted, because of growth, we were talking about Angelica and I are actually part of a group called, we're both John Maxwell coaches, and we are both going to be doing 15 laws of growth that John
Mhm.
Maxwell teaches. And we're doing a workshop starting next Monday, actually.
Yes, the
It's a
13th.
series. Yes, it's a
Mhm.
series that we will be doing, and it's with other coaches. We have, I think, 15 coaches that are going to be that are part of it, and each one of us is taking one law, and we're going to be sharing that. And so we'll be doing that. So that's something that if you're interested, reach out to either one of us, and yeah,
Yeah.
definitely do that. It's called the 15 laws of growth, and it's about an hour, a our Zoom call where we'll teach you the one law at a time for 15 weeks. And I think it'll be interesting because, and it's for women, primarily for women.
Mhm.
And as women, I think it's a great time to really reassess, what you want for this year, for
Yeah.
this new year, because it is the beginning of a new year. And I know that for me, every year I come up with a certain theme for the year. And last year's theme was freedom. This year's,
Ooh,
yes,
I
and I
like.
and I
Mhm.
I got the freedom that I kept it in mind all year round. So, and then this year, my word for the year is blossoming.
Ooh, that's a
It's,
nice one.
yeah, and because I was thinking about different things, and I don't know, this is maybe a little TMI, but I have a tattoo. I have a tattoo on my back, and I had the original one, which is a Celtic knotwork tattoo, done way, 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 like in the 90s, right? 94. That was when I finally got over my eating. disorder,
Yeah.
and I realized that, the body is just the body. It's just the shell. It's just what it is. The
Yeah.
inside is what really matters. And I wanted the strength of a Celtic knotwork to kind of give me the strength to go on and, be who I am, right? And it was about life and, how life is really eternal and it's really the soul that matters, not the body. And that's what I
Oh,
had symbolized, and that's why I got that tattoo back
that's
then.
so special. Yeah.
And, over the years, my life has changed. So I got a cover up tattoo. I don't know why I'm telling the whole
Yeah.
world this, but I just got a cover up tattoo starting this past year. I started
Wow.
working on it last January, actually. And I talked with a tattoo artist and we decided how we're going to cover it and this way and that way because the Celtic knotwork is very dark. It's dark greens and black,
Okay.
right? And so we needed to do something to cover it up. So, of course, it's like a canvas. You have to whiten it first. You have to get it
First.
whitened first.
Okay. Yeah.
So you have to cover it with white, which was painful, let me tell you.
Yeah.
And but we got it done. And the design is actually cherry blossoms because I love cherry blossoms and they're
Yeah.
but the I have cherry blossoms and at the top I had a rabbit because the rabbit is a symbol for my birth year in Chinese
Okay.
astrology.
Yes.
I'm a year of the rabbit and I relate to the rabbit and it's a smart, intelligent creature. And I was like, that resonates. But then I went to Japan and when I was there with my sister, a lot of things came full circle in my life. And I realized my identity solidified as, you know what, I am okay who I am. I don't have to wear a certain mask. I don't have to
Yeah.
be a certain person. While, I'm in Japan, I can be who I am and it's okay to be who I am. And I realized that. And then I realized for my tattoo, I was like, I don't resonate with the rabbit anymore. I mean, I
Oh,
still
yeah.
resonate with it, but it's not, I don't want it on my back forever. And I was like, I wanted something else. So I talked to my tattoo artist and we were talking and we're like, well, maybe galaxies because I like
Yeah.
galaxies and
Yeah.
stars and sci-fi and all that. So we were like, maybe that. And then he goes, well, how about a flower, another flower? And I'm like, okay. And he goes, how about a lotus flower? And I said, I love that. And so I have my whole back is like,
Yeah.
I have this cherry blossom blossoming here. And then I have this lotus flower that's on top of it.
Wow.
And,
You'll have
and
to share a picture at some
yeah,
point. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
I'll share it
excited
with
to
you
see it.
privately, but
Yeah, yeah.
but so the lotus flower is now there, and I was talking to somebody about it, and I was like, I love it because the lotus flower, what it does is it grows inside the water in the bottom of the pond or whatever, right? It starts growing there, and then it goes up and up through the water, and then it breaks the surface of the water with a bloom, right? And then it starts blossoming.
Opening up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was telling somebody that, and they go, well, then isn't that your word then? And I'm like, oh, you're right. Because I said, I wanted growth, I wanted abundance. And I was like, I can't find a
What you were
word
like,
for
what
that.
is the word? And now
Yeah.
you have the lotus. Yeah.
And I was like, that is so great. Thank you. And she helped me to
Wow.
figure that out. And that's my word for the year. And I don't know why we
Okay.
got off tangent, but that was
No,
growth.
no, I
But
think because
that's
we were talking about growth and
growth.
then
Yeah.
we talked about the session, the
Yeah.
growth session,
Yes.
and then you were talking about, but it makes perfect sense. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's great. And you were saying that our John Maxwell group about the
Yes.
15 valuable laws of growth is
Growth.
based on his book. And it is, like you said, one of the things I'm most excited about joining that group is the community. And that's what I
Yes.
want the people listening to us is that that's what it is somebody came to me recently, a couple ladies, and said, but I haven't read the book. And I'm like, that's the point. We're going to go every week through one chapter.
Right.
You can sign up for the first 5 chapters, or you can sign up for all 15, but we take a break after 5. We take
Yes.
a little break and then the next, and it's just 1 hour. Think about 1 hour that you can dedicate to yourself every week. one
Yep.
hour to just be in community with other women that really want to support you.
Yeah.
That's
And
all.
yep. And it's a really great community, like you said. And
Mhm.
it's a way to really, even if you're just half listening, of course I want you to participate, but even if you're just half listening, you're still getting that into your subconscious mind.
Yeah.
So I
Yes.
think it's valuable to do that. And
Yes.
yes, we'll put up I mean, I don't know if I could share
Yeah,
it.
and we have it on our socials, and we'll
Socials.
be
Yeah.
since we start on Monday, we'll be advertising more of it.
Yes. It's
So we're excited, and I hope that people are able to take advantage. If I had to do it, if somebody came to me and said that, and I had the opportunity to join it, I would have many more, because you
yes.
have different coaches that will share perspectives. So how great to get to know them and see what else do
Yeah.
they offer down the road. And
Yeah. And like I said, they're, different people, different personalities. So if you don't like, you're listening to me and you're like, I don't know if I want to learn from her, but then you might want to learn from Angelica, or you might want to learn from another coach. And,
yeah,
you get different coaches. So even if you're not really in sync with one person, next person you might be more in sync with. So, try it. And
yes,
you can't hurt. Like, we talked about nothing is a failure. You have to try it in order
you
to
have to
know.
try it. And now that you talked about your tattoo, I just couldn't help but think how it reminded me that one of the things I've struggled with in my life, and that's why I probably am a mindset coach, is my husband and my daughter gave me a necklace. I'm not wearing it right now, but I wore it
hmm
yesterday. And
Okay.
inside it has a little note, and you
Uh-huh.
can put it in there as a little locket, and it
Oh,
says progress over perfection, because they know I've been working on it. And that's part of why I'm probably in a way, that is my calling, because I've always had my mom is a very strong perfectionist, and
hmm
I also adopted some of those, but in my own, I also have a lot of perfectionist tendencies. So,
Yes.
and I give grace to a lot of people, but I'm not as good about giving grace to myself.
Yes.
So I like your tattoo because it's like you're evolving, like you were never done when you finished, right? Like it
Yep.
wasn't perfect, it wasn't done. And you're changing, and then you were like, oh, the rabbit. And then you realize maybe that wasn't either. And now, so you're always evolving, and maybe we're on earth to not really be done with things
Yeah,
necessarily.
I think so. I think it's just one phase, right?
Yeah, it's
That's what
it's
I'd
a
like to
season,
believe
or
anyway.
sometimes it's a phase, a
Yeah.
season, a time in life.
Yeah.
But and that's why I think we have to be so careful with that word perfection, because every not every, but majority of things outside of our own are measured good or bad, right? Like
Yes.
think about kids.
Yeah.
So my daughter will come home from school and everything is rated, she got an A, a B, whatever. But it's always you did great or you didn't. It's very black and white. And we are talking about it's okay to fail forward. It's
Yeah.
okay. But in society, it's not, because then it goes into the X, bad,
Yeah.
red. So
And
it's like, and it's the other day I had this thought. It was so funny. I was like, my daughter was showing me a drawing because she's really into art, and I was like, oh, that's great, that's perfect. And I was like, oh no, what am I saying? Even unconsciously, right? Even
yes.
unconsciously, I am saying the word perfect.
Yes.
So it is, I think it has many layers to it, right?
It does.
It
It
has so
does.
many layers to it.
And I think, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's
Um,
it. I
but
was
I'm
just
thinking
thinking.
like this would be this, our workshops and just, talking about this makes people think, and we have to change society. We have to, maybe even if it's just within our personal relationships, when we
Mhm.
start changing that, the world will start changing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And,
You are so right.
yeah, I'm not like a super person or anything like that, but slowly I believe that if we start changing, it's the ripple effect, and we can create those ripples to start making changes.
Oh, I
So
love that.
yeah, so I know we could go on, and I'd love to
All
continue
day
talking
with
to
you
you.
and the chit-chatting.
Yes, but we have to kind of wrap up soon. So, Angelica, I know I didn't get to ask you, this is Brain to Belly, but what do you think Brain to Belly means to you? And where can we get in touch with you to learn more about you? And what socials do you have that people can reach out to you on?
Absolutely. So first, thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed talking, and I love that it was so organic and so fluid, and we have so much in common. So I really hope those that listen were able to get, some inspiration out of it.
Yes.
You can find me in two places right now. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So Angelica Ponder, there's only one.
Yes.
If you forget, just think pondering a thought. Okay,
Ah,
that's easy. And then that's my husband's last name. And then I just started recently my Instagram account, my business account, and it's I am Angelica Ponder
oh,
at
easy.
Instagram. Very, very easy. So those are the two places. My website is getting a facelift, so it is not active, but in the long run, it will be in a month or so, and it will just be angelicaponder.com. That's where
Okay.
you will find me.
I love that consistency. I love
Very
it.
simple, very,
Yes.
very simple. I
Yes.
guess that's not a very common name.
Well, I like it because Angelica, when I first saw that, I was like, oh, angel, because it is angel, right?
It comes
And
from angelic.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then pond. And I was like, okay, it's like in my head, I had this image of an angel, and then there's a pond. And I
Oh.
was like, that's kind of cute. That's kind of, sweet. And then like an angel statue in the pond. And that's how I remember it. Anyway,
Oh.
I have to wrap up. So thank you so
Thank you.
much for being here today. And everyone, this show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out spanglishworld.ca and for all the news and programming, and visit my YouTube channel when you get a chance. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.
Wow.